Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Power Core Productions and Podcastings, where today we're going to be starting a brand new story here on the channel, that being X-Men: The Next Generation. What if Wolverine trained the X-Men? Season 1. Now, with this series, I know a lot of people have been wondering, based on the opening that came with this series, what was going to be the main story, who was I going to use, what X-Men world is this set in? Well, I'll try to answer those questions here. First and foremost, this is no one particular X-Men world that you're thinking of. So it's not really any one X-Men world. It's more so just a generalized X-Men universe that we're working with. Now, there's no Avengers, no Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, nothing like that. This world is exclusively an X-Men world. But it's not just the Fox movies, or it's not just the animated series, or just the comics. It's an amalgamation of all of that. It's a combination of the X-Men comics. It's a combination of the TV show, combination of the movies. Just a combination of everything all being brought together to tell one epic X-Men story. And I'm going to be using a lot of different animes, specifically rom-com anime characters, basically being put in the X-Men world. But without further ado, let's get into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Who were the mutants? To some, they were considered menaces to society, to all humanity. To others, they were considered heroes. Some thought that they were just ordinary people like you or I, ordinary people with extraordinary gifts, who had to make decisions, some good and some bad. Time has a way of healing wounds, and time has a way of embellishing and indulging the past. No one knows quite sure where the mutants first came from, and just as quickly, no one knew where they all disappeared to. It seemed as though that information was slowly being lost to the voids of time itself. But the last thing that anyone could truly remember was there was a battle. A battle that had been fought time and time again. A clash of ideologies among two sides in the mutant community. Those who wished for cohabitation, for peace and for understanding. And those who believed in true evolution, that only the strongest should be allowed to reign, and that those who are too weak should not dictate to the strong. It was a clash as old as time, a battle between two sides, two ideologies, but a clash that came to an abrupt end. There was chaos, many not knowing what was happening during those times. But just as quickly, all of it seemingly came to an end. A woman by the name of Wanda Maximoff. She lost control. It wasn't the first time she had lost control. Her powers, a blessing and a curse, plagued her with what many could consider unlimited power. But even with that unlimited power, there came to be a great strain upon her. Professor X, as he was known, Charles Xavier, the last thing he remembered when he was inside of her mind, she was not the only one there. There were two Wandas, two of them fighting for control. Their Wanda and another one, a being that came from another reality, who had been, in a weird way, body hopping from different versions of herself. She was engaged in a conflict on both fronts, fighting against this other Wanda and fighting for control of her own mind, even with the aid of the Professor and his X-Men. Of course, her father, known as Magneto to many, was seeking to use that power to win the war against humanity in service to the mutants once and for all. The fighting was taking its toll on both ends. All X-Men were assembled, all those allied to the Brotherhood. World governments were seeking to step in as well, believing that now was the time to rid the world of the mutants once and for all, whether they be friend or foe. In the midst of all of that chaos, in the midst of all of that confusion, 3 words were uttered. 3 words that rocked the very foundation of the world. No more mutants. A great gust of energy encapsulated the world. A crimson aura. Many of the mutant kind had their powers stripped from them. All the superpowered beings were now reduced to being ordinary citizens. Nothing remained. There was only a small few that survived, but even among the X-Men, it seemed as though almost all of them, all had lost their powers. Say only for the Professor and another man known only as Logan, or as you would refer to him, the Wolverine. For everyone else, their powers, what made them who they were gone. On one hand, it was a shocking revelation. That feeling as if a part of you, a piece of you that made you who you were, was taken away. That was the thing with mutants, the thing that no one talked about when you lost your powers. Your powers weren't just some external force, something that you could just take on and off like a piece of clothing. No, the powers, they were ingrained into your DNA. The same as the DNA that formed your eye color. The same DNA that formed the hair that you grew. The DNA that formed your very makeup, your very being. Like a house that was built brick on brick upon brick. It was as if a single brick had been pulled out from that house. Yes, the house could still stand, relatively, but that brick would always be noticeable. And no matter how much you tried to cover up with everything else, if you were not replacing the brick with what was once there, you would always feel that emptiness inside of you. That's what it felt like. On one hand, some consider it a blessing. For all the fighting, for all the turmoil, it was over. Maybe it was for the best. It was for the best that it stayed that way. The Brotherhood would be disbanded, with most of their members, all of them losing their powers. What was there left to fight for? Magneto among them all. But what was more important wasn't just the loss of powers, it was the loss of Wanda. Because you see, from that day forth, Wanda disappeared from the world. No one knew where she had gone. It was as if she just simply vanished from all existence. The Professor couldn't find her. She was out there, her vestige, whatever she was, ethereal or not, she existed, but at the same time, she didn't. For now, what were they to do? They couldn't really be X-Men if they didn't have that extraordinary factor. Xavier's School for the Gifted, it became just a regular institute. Those who attended, they chose to go home, and rightfully so. Of course, to many parents, they were relieved. Many thought that their children who had been afflicted thought that their answers have finally come to them, that their prayers have finally been answered. Of course, you had the religious zealots who were very quick to jump onto the matter, believing that God had finally come down to punish the mutant race and that now he had cleansed them from the earth, just like he had before with the days of Noah. Everyone had their own interpretations. Some thought the mutant gene, it must have gone into recession. What if it comes back? If there's just one mutant out there, even if it takes 100, 200 years, the population could potentially regrow. But the more that they checked, the more they saw that the mutants were just disappearing. They were just vanishing into thin air. Over time, one by one, the students of Professor X slowly began to leave as well. They thought that the war had finally come to an end. If this was the result, if this was the price that had to be paid, then so be it. At least now they had the peace of mind. They could finally move on with their lives. Of course, the government were still a bit weary, but after seeing that the X-Men, for the most part, had been stripped of what they once were, they decided that out of kindness, they would give them amnesty. Seeing as how they were no longer viewed as threats, they could live their lives as ordinary citizens, with all of their actions up until now just being converted to time served for a good cause. Of course, there was Professor X, who still retained his power, but he did not disclose that to the government officials. He had no intentions on using his power for nefarious means, and as he used Cerebro, confirming more and more that the mutant population had dwindled down to around nothing, save for only himself and Logan, what other reason was there for him to use his powers? Of course, he would continue to act as the beacon, acting as someone who would look out just in case there were any survivors. His institute would always be a home for them. But if there were none left, then he served no real purpose. From then on, the professor would decide to keep to himself, not being a complete recluse, but at the same time, there was no need for him to venture to the outside. For Logan, he took time to be alone as well. He had to make sure not to use his powers, mainly because he didn't want to get caught up in any nonsense that didn't pertain to him. It was a lot easier said than done, but he had a knack for minding his own business. Although he would stop to visit the professor from time to time, and that was the routine for well over the last 10 years. For 10 years, the world had been rebuilding, slowly leaving behind the scars of what mutant kind had brought to the world. So much so that it got to a point where some people questioned if the mutants ever existed in the first place. Because not only did the mutants disappear, but strangely enough, it was as if the knowledge of their existence slowly began to fade from the minds of citizens as well. So much so that it got to a point where many were questioning if mutants were little more than a fairy tale. But that brings us to today, where our story begins. It started like any other. Professor Charles Xavier, moving through what were now the empty halls of his institute, hovering in a wheelchair. As he made his way, he did what he normally did from time to time. He would visit Cerebro, a highly advanced piece of technology that allowed him to link to the minds of any mutants all around the world. Of course, he always checked it from time to time to see if he'd find anyone out there. Never, of course, being able to do so. It would only be himself and wherever Logan was in the world. But as he went to check on this day, there was something out there. Not something or someone, but something entirely different. It was like an entity, a consciousness, a lost consciousness. It was Wanda. There was no mistaking it. That was her. But he could not find her body anywhere on the planet. It was as if he could feel her presence, but there was no body to go with it. As if she were lost in some form of static. Wanda? Wanda, is that you? I can't hold it. It's unbearable. Wanda, where are you? I can get you the help you need. Please tell me where you are. It's so quiet. It's so peaceful. I feel like I'm at peace. Wanda? Logan was long gone. He had gone out for a ride on his motorcycle, a chance to clear his mind of things, when suddenly he felt a voice in his head. He didn't even have to question, he knew who it was, and without question, he turned back around just as quickly. By the time he arrived to the Institute, he made his way underground to where the professor would be with Cerebro. You called? What's the problem? It's Wanda. Wanda? What about Wanda? What, did she pop back up again? It's not that simple. What do you mean it's not that simple? No one's seen or heard from her in forever. We thought she died. Come on, I know you're not the one to pull pranks here. What the hell's going on? Her consciousness. It was vague, but I could feel her consciousness. Okay, but where is she? That's the thing. There's no body, Logan. No body. It's like picking up a radio wave, a frequency in the air. I can feel her presence in the air. Like it's where she should be, but she's not. You're not making any sense. So where exactly is this consciousness? Look, I need to call the team. There's no time. They've all gone their separate ways. They're too far. By the time we even get a fraction of the group back together, we may have already lost our chance. Lost our chance. Our chance to do what? We have to follow it. At least while it's still present, while I can still feel something. Professor, with all due respect, I don't know if this is something that just the two of us should be getting into. I really feel like we should get everyone else involved. And I'll let them know in time. Please, you have to trust me. We must follow this presence wherever it leads. If there's a chance for us to pull her out, wherever she might be at, we have to take it now. We can't afford to waste time. Of course, Logan, even against better judgment, knew that this was the only course of action they could take. But still, they were going to tell the others about this, sooner or later. They got into the jet and began flying, the flight leading them over the Pacific Ocean, heading straight for the isle and country nation, one that Logan was very familiar with, the nation of Japan. Meanwhile, over in Japan, it was beginning to be a festive time of the year. It was New Year's, with the New Year's Eve celebrations coming just around the corner. Everyone had their own ways of celebrating, whether it be paying their respects at the shrine to ancestors long since passed, or engaging in other forms of festivity and merriment. This was a time of year where everyone was thankful for having gotten through yet another trying period of time. Another year was coming and going, and now it was time to bask and see what the new year had in store. None more so than many of the young couples strewn all throughout Japan. None more so than in Tokyo. The great New Year's festival was set to take place, and with school being out for the proverbial events, many of whom were going out with friends, family, loved ones, and other sorts, all to enjoy the evening festivities. Among them, a boy and a girl. A boy who had been waiting for this day. His name was Ryuji, and the girl he was with, her name was Taiga. You know, I would have much rather enjoyed just having a hot pot at your house with your mom. Why did we have to come all the way out here? Especially during New Year's. You know it gets cold, Taiga would complain, wrapped in her white winter coat and scarf. I wanted us to have a chance to go out and enjoy ourselves. I've been saving up. Besides, you owe me for that little stunt you pulled. What stunt? Stupid dog. You know what I'm talking about. You just upped and disappeared without saying goodbye. I left a note. A note? Seriously? You couldn't give me a call, anything? You just leave an anonymous note? How was I supposed to know you were coming back? Ow! Taiga grabbed him by the ear. Listen here. I understand that you cannot live without your precious master, and for that, I'll forgive you. But don't you ever doubt me. Understand? Ow! Okay, I understand, Taiga. Ow! Good. She gave him a peck on the cheek. Happy New Year's. Stupid my dragon. Happy New Year's to you, Tiger. Of course, they wouldn't be the only couple here. Well, official couple at least. Let's do a quick rundown of some of the key participants on this most special of nights. There would be Nagatoro, along with her senpai, Naoto, although she preferred to just call him senpai. They were off enjoying the takoyaki stand. This is really good, senpai. I know you have to be thankful. After all, if it wasn't for the likes of me, you'd be spending your New Year's all cooped up inside your room doing something really sus. I wasn't gonna do anything sus. I like to have a quiet New Year's, you know, Nagatoro. Do I really have to get teased over that? You do. Here, have some takoyaki. Wait, that's actually pretty good. It burns! Weak constitution, senpai. Looks like I win again. Huh, June? Oh, please. Best 3 out of 5. Let's go. June would say to Tomo as they were enjoying some of the festive games at the New Year's Eve festival. Also, yes, June? Come on. We've already been dating for the last 6 months. Just come out and say it. You look cute in that yukata of yours. Oh, you big lug! Tomo would give June a punch in the arm that sent him flying across the ground and into another booth. Oh, crap. I didn't mean to do that. It's fine, Tomo. Really? You know what? Rain check on that game. I think I need to lie down for a moment. She's crazy strong. And why do you look so surprised? Mai said to Sakuta as they walked through the various vendors of the New Year's festival. Well, why wouldn't I be? My most amazing, most beautiful, most talented girlfriend in the entire world took time out of her busy schedule to pay me a visit on, most sacred of nights. I'm thrilled, over the moon. I'm ecstatic. I'm quite well aroused. As you should be. But still, you shouldn't be so surprised. I already had it written into my contract that I'd be able to take some time off for just an occasion like this. You should be grateful. I'm always grateful. I'm extremely grateful to have you around. Sakuta took the moment to try to lean in for a kiss, only to feel the pressure of her foot driven on top of his. That really hurts, you know. Yes, but I know you like it. You really know me well. Meanwhile, another young man, struggling for his life, as he was carrying 8 full bags on each arm, as well as trying to carry what was around his neck. By the way, if you drop one of those, your life will be over. Come on, Akari. Was all this stuff really necessary? Of course it is. It's the New Year's, and I want to spruce up our home for the practical. Besides, I got some stuff that you might like as well. Like what? It's a secret, but I can tell you this. It's lacy and see-through. Oh, God! Jiro bursting out as Akari couldn't help but laugh at the ultimate teasing that she was putting the poor boy through. Akari had already made up her mind about how she felt about him, and now it was just about getting him to see things her way. She'd proved that she was better than some flimsy childhood friend. And from this commentator, I can assure you she truly is. I'm so glad that I was able to enjoy this evening with you, Misaki. Enjoy? More like you stood outside my job until we closed down, begging for me to come with you to the festival. And I'm happy that you accepted my offer. Ow, ow, ow! Misaki grabbed him by the ear. Usui, what have I told you about the outburst public displays of affection you keep showing me every day? Tone it down? Exactly. So your idea of toning it down was to bathe me in rose petals, serenade me, try to buy me expensive bottles of champagne that we're not supposed to be drinking, by the way, just to get me to come to a festival with you for New Year's? Well, I mean, you came, didn't you? Get your mind out of the gutters. I would never think of such a thing, although I must say, you are truly the most beautiful woman that I have ever laid eyes on. Oh, you're nothing but a masochist. For you, my darling, indeed I am. Whatever. Let's just try to enjoy our evening, all right? Meanwhile, a young man named Junichi would be sitting with his girlfriend Yukana. Junichi getting the chance to enjoy the latest baked goods that his girlfriend had made for him. She had aspirations of being a baker and working with cakes and other forms of sweets, so often he found himself being the taste tester. But even outside of desserts, her cooking was always splendid. Wow, these chocolates taste great, Yukana. I mean, they're always great. Thank you so much. Well, I just wanted to show my appreciation. After all, we've been through so much and we're getting to experience our first New Year's together. And hopefully we'll get to experience many more. Junichi would blush highly at this, at the very thought of spending another New Year's with her, even more so that were to come now and in the future. Finally, A young man by the name of Miyamura, with the help of his girlfriend Hori, were dropping off the last of the boxes for a delivery order that he had to drop off for the New Year's festivities. Miyamura's family owned a bakery, and as such, it was often that they'd be busy during the holidays, mainly because there were sponsors and other people who liked the goods that they had at their shop. So whenever Miyamura wasn't helping with the cooking or things of that nature, he was delivering cakes, pies, tarts, and other things wherever they may need to go. This time, his girlfriend, Hori, would be helping him out. Since this was the last delivery for the evening, the two were going to enjoy the festivities of New Year's together. It looks like that's the last one. Thanks, Hori. No problem. I wasn't going to let you do all this by yourself. And besides, it's an excuse for us to enjoy the New Year's together. You want to come back over to my place? Sure. I'd love to hang out with Sota some more. He's gonna be at his friend's house for the New Year's. So I guess we'll be watching movies with your mom and dad? Nope. Mom had to work the late shift, and Dad's off doing what he always does. A small blush would appear before Miyamura's face. It wasn't something he normally initiated, but whenever there was alone time, sparks were often known to fly. And unlike most girls, Hori was definitely the more aggressive type. So, whenever the mood was right, she'd definitely be on the prowl. As the people were enjoying the festivities, off in the distance, Logan continuing to fly the jet, with Xavier focusing in on Wanda's energy that was now heading towards Tokyo, Japan. I don't understand, Professor. What exactly are you getting at with this? You say you can sense Wanda, but she doesn't have a physical form on Earth. It makes no sense at all. I know it doesn't, Logan, but you have to trust me. I feel a great concentration of energy. And it's not just Wanda's. There's something else. Something entirely different. It's as if I can feel every single mutant that's ever existed on planet Earth, all enrolled into one. Well, that doesn't sound too good at all. Do you have any idea what we're getting ourselves into? According to the scanners, it looks like there's a nasty storm heading our way. I doubt that's a coincidence. No, it is not. The New Year's festivities were still continuing, with the countdown just moments from arrival. Everyone gathering with their significant other, sweetheart, family, friends, and otherwise, ready to count down and bring in the new year. Everyone gathered around the square of Tokyo Center, watching from places on high, as the buildings began to adorn with lights, screens flashing with the numbers, as the countdowns were set to begin. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. The sound and the cheerings of Happy New Year's could be heard all through the streets. Hugs, kisses, high fives, drinks flowing, and good times rolling for all. However, the sounds of thunder could be heard as well. The harsh cold winds began to pick up, swirling around all the people through the streets. There was a chance of storms, but still, this was happening all too sudden, as if the weather had taken a complete 180 in just a few short moments. Things started to get pretty drastic, to the point where some were considering just packing up early and just going in for the night. But it soon became apparent that they weren't going to have much of a choice in the matter, because what appeared to be that of a tornado of crimson wind began to form. It began to rapture and move all throughout the city, the winds beginning to pick up violently in every which way and direction as people began to run and take shelter in fear for their lives. Among them, as people in the streets were running for their lives, Miyamura turned to see that Hori, whose hand he had been holding, had suddenly slipped from him. She was beginning to be sucked in by the crimson vortex. Hori yelled out to Miyamura as he quickly dashed back behind her. Similar cases were happening all over as various people were being pulled in by the crimson winds. Before long, the ones who had been pulled inside, as they felt themselves spiraling in the vortex, they all feared for their lives, assuming that this was going to be the end of them, that they were going to experience a painful death in the worst way possible. But a strange phenomena occurred. For you see, as violent as the winds seemed, and they truly were, once you were pulled inside, no harm came to you. Instead, the feeling was euphoric in a way, as if your body was undergoing some sort of metamorphosis, a change that couldn't be completely put into words, as if the old you were starting to fade and something new, something else would come out. By the time Logan had managed to land the plane and get close to what was happening, the professor, still trying to get into contact with Wanda, who had taken the form of this violent storm, she was still crying out, crying that she was in another plane of existence, unsure of where she was or what was happening. Wanda, please listen to me, the professor would say. You have to focus on my voice. Wherever you are, I'm going to try to pull you out. I can't undo what I've done. I tried. I'm so sorry. Please, Wanda. The storm would continue to bellow once more before finally bursting away, completely disappearing and subsiding, save for the few cars that were turned over, glasses of window panes of various stores that were broken through. Surprisingly enough, no one came out of this harmed, although there were a group of teenagers whose lives had been changed forever. What happened next, it could only be described as a fever dream. The sounds of doors opening and closing, the sound of machines beeping non-stop. The doctors inside of the hospital were perplexed. For some of them, they were mortified at what they were seeing because it didn't even seem real. It didn't seem possible. Some of the changes were more noticeable than others, but the children that were brought in, it was just, what were they supposed to do? No amount of training could have prepared them for something like this. Some were debating if they should call the local authorities or someone even higher. Of course, there was mass chaos and panic going on for the 16 that had been admitted into the hospital. But it would subside just as quickly, as if time and everything else all at once seemed to stop. A wheelchair slowly moving through the halls. It had been 3 days since that incident, and in that time, a new phenomena would have occurred. The wheelchair made its way to the room. There were 16 in total, 8 boys, 8 girls. As he made it to the room with the boys, some of them still stirring, half dazed, half trying to come to grips with what had happened to them, There was one in particular who was slowly coming to his awakening. His name was Miyamura. But something didn't feel right. He was trying to recall what happened. The last thing he remembered was Hori. As he shot up out of bed, he realized that his eyes were covered. He could feel something in his arm, like a needle, an IV, a hospital. He could feel the gown, but why was he here? What was going on? He immediately was preparing to move the bandages when he felt a hand reach over his. A gruff voice speaking out to him. I wouldn't do that if I were you, bub. What? Why? Why can't I? Listen, kid. I'm going to need you to calm down and calm down. I need to find Hori. I need to know if she's fine. But I need you to... No, I'm not going to calm down. It's all right, Miyamura. Miyamura heard another voice. A voice that was in his head. I need you to relax. And I need you to trust me. What I'm going to tell you may not make any sense at all, but it will in time. But it's imperative that you do not open your eyes. Miyamura wasn't sure of what to do. On one hand, there was a strange voice telling him to calm down, another one telling him not to open his eyes. He was in a hospital for reasons he didn't know. The last thing he remembered was his girlfriend being pulled into some red-looking tornado of death. And he followed soon after. Slowly, the memories would start to return to him as he began to remember more and more about what happened. He remembered lying on the ground, and when he woke up, he opened his eyes looking for Hori, but he saw people running away from him. He remembered raising his head, and he saw a large chunk of rock looking as if it were about to fall and crush him. And then he remembered blacking out. The building, that side of it got cut off. How did I? You have changed, Miyamura. All of you have changed. And you have become something entirely different. You have become mutants. Mutants? What are you talking about? Who are you? My name is Charles Xavier. And I promise you, I am here to help. This concludes X-Men: The Next Generation. What if Wolverine trained the X-Men? Season 1, Part 1. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we'll continue with Part 2 of What If Wolverine Trained the X-Men, X-Men: The Next Generation, Season 1, Part 2. But that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.